It's time to take your seat in the front row with Mike Vaccaro. Here's your host, Mike Vaccaro.
Hey, thank you, Chuck, and welcome everybody. Mike Vaccaro here in the front row. As always with us, it's JR Quitman, our director, producer, creator of the show, creator of Vanderscape Media as well. Check it out. Episode number 26. We're talking basketball, we're talking football, we're talking baseball, we're talking everything because we're talking to Rusty LaRue. He was a three-sport athlete at Wake Forest, one of the best to ever do it as a quarterback, also a pitcher on the baseball field, and an outstanding shooter as well for the basketball team. He won 4 straight times in his career at Cameron Indoor Stadium. Incredible record there for him. He talks about all that with Wake Forest and then his pro basketball career, which included being a member of the Last Dance, the last Chicago Bulls championship team for Michael Jordan. He was on that team. He shares those experiences with us and also his coaching career and what he's doing now. Great episode coming your way, episode 26, and it features Rusty LaRue. Rusty, first of all, thanks for taking time out of your schedule to join us here today. And we're going to talk about a lot of different things. Obviously, get into your NBA career with the playoffs going on right now. And I'm sure that's kind of going through your mind a little bit, but certainly want to dive into your Wake Forest career as well. And, the star athlete that you were, a 3-sport athlete there. But let's go all the way back. You're from Winston-Salem, born in 1973. So you stayed in the area. Tell us about what early life was like for you and what sports you were playing, what some of maybe the motivations you were and the coaches that you had early on in your career.
Yeah, I started, like I said, I grew up in Kernersville and started playing basketball and baseball when I was 6. Started football when I was 8 and played 3 for a long time after that. But I was just always an active kid. Neighborhood had a lot of kids. We played out in the yard, football. We had a sport court in our backyard with a lights, nice bright halogen lights. So I'd be out there at all hours of the night shooting, and had an older brother who's 5 years older than me. And so, as a kid, pretty much spent most of my time tagging along with him, trying to get into the pickup games and, live up to him as an athlete. And so my dad was one of my first coaches, coached me when I was in little all the way through AAU, probably until I was about 12 or 13, and coached me in Pop Warner and all those things. So I was blessed as a kid to have a dad who pushed me hard, but kept me active. Like I said, did a lot of stuff when I was younger.
At some point, athletes kind of concentrate on one sport, but you really didn't have to do that for quite some time. Did you have in your mind a sport that you thought that you were better at than the other 3? Because again, you played all 3 at some point in high school and in your college career as well.
Yeah. When I was in high school, it was interesting because I had my high school basketball coach was my JV baseball coach. And he always swore I'd be a pro baseball player just because, I'm 6'3" on a good day, 200 pounds soaking wet. And so, but I got recruited the highest for football. I started at quarterback as a sophomore. We went pretty deep in the playoffs and, kind of had everybody recruit me coming out of high school. So, I don't know. I guess I kind of basketball probably was always my favorite just because in the summer when I was in high school, when I was 15, we went to the Senior League World Series. And then kind of after that, I chose to play AAU basketball every summer instead of doing travel baseball. So I think, basketball kind of always sort of won out, when I had to choose, one or the other in the summer. But I love them all. I mean, that's why I kept playing them. I really love playing them all. They all bring different things to the table. And as a competitor, I used to always tell people I just loved, why would I go run in the off season and do all the off season work if I can play and keep score and not have to do all the running and stuff. So
did you find that one sport helped you out in another sport in addition to maybe the conditioning? Were there any aspects from, say football that helped you out in basketball or basketball that helped you out in baseball?
I think they all lend themselves well. I mean, they're all different. Baseball is such a skill game. It's such a skill kind of individual game wrapped up into a team game. And I always loved the John Crook thing. Somebody said one time he was a, great Phillies player. He was in the dugout eating a hot dog before the game, and somebody said, "Crook, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. You're a pro athlete." He said, "Lady, I'm a pro baseball player. I'm not a pro athlete." So baseball, you can be so skilled. Basketball is kind of in between. You got to be an athlete. You can be just skilled. You can be an athlete and still be successful. And then, football, you kind of got to be a good athlete to play football, maybe except quarterback position, but you still got to be a heck of a skill athlete, but have some physical ability to play it. Football, the toughness always, I thought, really helped me carry over into both my sports, other sports I played. The leadership that you learn in team building, you have to kind of working together. You have to do in basketball, brings itself to the table as well. So I think they all lean on each other. That's why I think if you ever find a guy who's a great athlete, I mean, LeBron James probably could be a great tight end too. You know what I mean? He's just a phenomenal athlete.
Well, again, you go to Northwest Guilford High School. You graduated there in '91. You were all state in all three sports. Tell us about that recruiting process, because I'm certain it was different back in 1991 than it is now. Obviously, no social media and different things along those lines. What was that recruiting process like for you?
Yeah, I started getting recruited the most for football. I got on Street and Smith's like 50 people to watch coming out of my sophomore year. And so I got letters from everybody, from Notre Dame to USC to Florida. But I always knew I knew I wanted to play multiple sports. Two, I knew I didn't really want to go that far away from home. And so my junior year, we kind of graduated a lot of guys in football. Some of the heavyweights started to drop off a little bit. And it kind of came down to where for two sports, I had Richmond and Davidson were kind of primarily basketball, football second. And then I had Wake Forest was the only ACC school that recruited me for both. And part of that was because I started going to Wake basketball camp when I was 8 years old. Jerry Wainwright recruited me and knew me well enough to know that I could play in the ACC. And then actually Virginia recruited me for both because Dennis Wolf, who used to be at Wake, went to Virginia. And so I think those guys had seen me in person enough and knew me well enough to know that I could play. And then Florida was my biggest football only. Spurrier had left Duke, had recruited me at Duke and went down there. And so I had kind of come down to those 5 schools when I was looking at what to do, and then ended up committing to Wake at the end of my junior year, right at the end of my junior season to play 2. And actually, Coach Greer at baseball had actually come and watched me play and told me I could play that if I wanted to too. So that was kind of why I decided that. Late into my senior year, Florida came on kind of late and said they were willing to let me play basketball. But, I love the idea of playing football in Florida, but they had already signed Danny Werfel, and I didn't really want to go to Florida. And so I was excited to stay home and go to Wake.
Yeah, Danny Werfel, a recent guest of ours. It worked out well for him and for you as well.
Absolutely.
Heisman Trophy winner, Danny Werfel. So did you put it out there early on in the recruiting process that, hey, I didn't want to just play one sport. I wanted to be multiple sport athlete at wherever I went?
I did. Yeah. I mean, pretty much when teams started recruiting me, that was one of the first questions I asked, how do you feel about me playing multiple sports? And, some people love the idea. And, again, I guess I was a high enough rated quarterback that Wake and Virginia were willing to let me do it, but Notre Dame wasn't, and Florida the same, because they want you full time. But, and a lot of schools just, wasn't done much. Charlie Ward was actually at Florida State, so he was really the only guy kind of doing it at the time. And I think it had kind of started to wane a little bit of how many guys were doing it. You don't have the Bo Jacksons and the guys, and a lot of guys. I kind of knew I wanted to keep doing basketball, and so back then there were a lot more guys doing. You saw a lot of guys doing football and baseball, and either they would play football and then play baseball in the summer. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Quarterback at NC State who was there with me was playing summer baseball. You think about even. Patrick Mahomes was doing that. You know what I mean? So that's not as rare as guys playing football and basketball.
Well, how does that work from the coaching standpoint? Obviously, you had some good coaches. You had Jim Caldwell, your football coach, Dave Odom, your basketball coach. They've got to be on the same page, right? Are they talking to each other during the season? Because I'm sure there were at times some overlapping commitments.
Yeah. The beautiful thing was being a small school like Wake too, it was helpful. I was on football scholarship, so Dave was getting me free. So there's only so much he could ask, I suppose. But the great thing was those coaches really let me, when I was away from my sport, they let me be away from it. I came, I did football in the fall, all summer, in the fall, and then the day football ended, I started basketball the next day. I got in the gym some as the season would get close, but that's why it always took me a little while for basketball to get in basketball shape and to really grow in my role with them is because you're concentrating on football until the season ends. And actually, my freshman year when we went to the Independence Bowl, I actually practiced basketball for 2 weeks, and while we were off for football. With the team, just because I wasn't really playing a whole lot in football anyway. But they let me go, and then when basketball season would end, literally I would start the next day getting ready for spring football. And because we went deep in the tournament, sometimes that was a week or two away, and I would jump right into spring football. And pretty much summers basketball left me alone. And the 1 year I played baseball, they didn't want me to start baseball till spring football was over. So I kind of was practicing baseball the days I wasn't playing football. And then I by the time spring ended, I got to pitch in one game because there wasn't much of the season left. But yeah, so that was great. I mean, they let me have my time. And the biggest thing was football never wanted me to lose a lot of weight. I came in at like $180 my freshman year, and they wanted me closer to 200. And, I ate a lot of food during basketball season, trying to keep the weight on. Let's put it that way.
A lot of pizza on those bus rides back home or whatever.
Sure.
Let's talk about football a little bit more. Again, you played for Jim Caldwell, great coach for Wake Forest, coach in the NFL as well. And that first year as a freshman, as you said, you went to the Independence Bowl. So that was big for Wake Forest, right? At the time, what was it like playing for him and leading Wake Forest to a bowl game?
Well, actually, my freshman year, I wasn't a starting quarterback. Keith West was our starter, and it was actually Bill Dooley's last year at Wake.
Okay.
He recruited me, brought me in, and my freshman year, kind of the plan was I was going to redshirt. If I didn't redshirt football, I was going to redshirt basketball. And try to redshirt one because just to keep the eligibility. And so my freshman year, I came in and we were not very good the year before. Wake had struggled, so we lost our first game. I think we beat Appalachian State, and then we lost our third game. And going into our fourth game, we were playing at Florida State. And so I had moved up into the backup quarterback spot. And so on Monday, the week we were playing Florida State, I had not played a snap in college. They said, you're going to get to play this week at Florida State. So, I'd rather them not tell me, to be honest, just throw me in the game down there instead of have to worry about it all week. But we go down there and obviously, are getting throttled by Florida State at Florida State with Charlie Ward as the quarterback. And got to play the whole fourth quarter. And so that was game 4 of my freshman year. So then we're 1-2 at that point, and we go to play at Vanderbilt my freshman year. And we go on a tear, and Keith West starts playing great at quarterback, and we end up winning the game at Vanderbilt. I played 8 snaps at Vanderbilt, and then we go on a run and win 6 in a row and go to the Independence Bowl. And I'm the backup all year and really don't play anymore the rest of the year, other than a few token snaps, and win the Independence Bowl. And back then, you lost your red shirt if you played at all after the fourth game, if you played 1 snap after the fourth game. And so Dooley knew it was his last year, so he wasn't trying to get me ready for the next year. And so I lost my red shirt, literally on about 8 or 10 snaps at Vanderbilt. But was excited when Coach Caldwell came in. He came in with a lot of fanfare and brought in a new staff and a heck of a guy. Loved playing for him. It was a battle my first couple years. I was always kind of battling for my job because he was a new coach. He brought in his own recruits, but it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, by your senior year, you were the guy, right? You broke 8 NCAA records, including 55 completions in a game that you guys lost to Duke, but 55 completions. I mean, your arm must have been sore after that one. I mean, that's completions. How many did you attempt in that game?
I want to say I attempted either 72 or 74 passes that game. And we were not great. And Coach Caldwell came in from Penn State. So my sophomore year, we were an I-back team under Dooley. We were old school, kind of I-back. And then my sophomore and junior year, we tried to go to we brought in the Miami Hurricanes offensive guy from there to be offensive coordinator. So we went I-back, one back, a lot of option routes. My sophomore year was starting. We had a really talented team. We had John Leach, a running back, Walt Rasby, who ended up playing in the league for a long time at tight end. And we were competitive. We were winning 5 of our last 6 games at halftime and ended up losing those games. And so we ended up I can't remember. My memory goes bad when it's bad seasons, but 1-10 or 2-9 or whatever the case may be. But we were competitive. I mean, we're really competitive. And then we graduated some of those talented guys. In my junior year, we really struggled. My running the one back, we were still trying to kind of get our personnel. And then going into my senior year, we actually decided to try to go back to I-backs. Our coordinator had moved on, and we were not very good then as well. And so my dad used to joke that our offensive, instead of run and shoot or spread, we were run, pass, punt was our offense. But so we got to our last 3 games, and we just decided we got to Duke. We got down 21-0 in the first 6 minutes of the game. I mean, we punted, they scored. We had a fumble, they scored. We punted, they scored, and it was, so we had been practicing the spread, no huddle, and so we just said, to heck with it. We're going to go no huddle spread. And so from literally the middle of the first quarter on, it was nothing but option routes and dump passes and spread the rest of the game. And we made it competitive, but still lost.
When did you realize that you had set a record with those 55 completions?
Yeah, right after the game, they started saying, hey, you broke a record. And I was like, at the time you're like, hey, that's great. But, we still lost another game, And so, I mean, it's awesome when you get a chance to break individual records. You love to do them. You'd like to do them when you're winning, and hopefully the team's doing great. But, for me, it had been a long 4 years of football, just with maybe not winning as many games we'd like, and I had fought for my job, and so a little personal vindication to say the least, maybe just to get a chance to kind of show what I could do in that type of offense.
Yeah, again, this is the early 90s, 1992 to 1996. Maybe no transfer portal at that time. I mean, was transfer ever on your mind, or were you at the mindset, hey, I'm gonna get that job back. I'm gonna keep that job. I'm gonna fight for that job.
Yeah, no, it was always the fight, to keep the job, and it didn't help that I was playing basketball at the same time and we were winning. It's always nice to basketball was sort of a breath of fresh air. Went to the tournament every year, and so it was a good respite for me from maybe the losing of football, But no, I mean, I love my time at Wake, so I never thought of transferring. I don't think ever even crossed my mind. Just not something that was even in the realm of possibility. I think, you go somewhere to try to make it better and to make your mark, and that's what you set out to do, and do the best you can with it.
Well, as you said, basketball was a lot better for you, winning championships there, championships in 1995 and 1996 in the ACC. What was it like playing for Dave Odom? Again, a legendary coach at Wake Forest on the basketball side. What was it like playing for him and going from, again, football to the basketball side of things?
Dave's great. I think, anybody who's played for Dave would tell you he's a straight shooter, and you kind of know where you stand with him. And his style of coaching fit me really well. Was a disciplinarian and one of the guys who played defense and like the toughness. And I thought he was really good at putting pieces together. I think if you ever look at all our Wake teams and all the teams he had, we had a lot of good pieces, different types of guys who fit together. And, it doesn't hurt to have, Rodney Rogers and Randolph Childress and Tim Duncan to go along with it. But I think playing for him was good for me. It was always tough, getting in late, coming in and trying to earn your spot. And, I was 6 man, kind of my junior year, and got to earn a starting spot my senior year. And, we had talked about, like I said, redshirting. And after my, freshman football year, when we kind of, I had kind of moved up to the backup spot, we discussed it briefly, but it was kind of like, I ended up not redshirting just because they didn't figure. I think most people kind of figured I was going to go on to play pro in something else other than basketball. So, we just decided not to do it. But it was great experience for me, and had some unbelievable teammates and some excellent teams. So.
You mentioned Jerry Wainwright, assistant coach there with Dave Odom before he moved on to UNCW and successful career as a head coach at UNCW. What was he like as an assistant coach? As you said, he helped recruit you as well.
Coach Wainwright is one of my favorite individuals in the world. I'll tell you, just got a story for everything. Tough guy, loves tough guys. Again, recruited me and wouldn't have been at Wake without him. To be honest with you, I think his hard work. I hated he didn't get to be with us for the run. I was excited for him when he got the opportunity when he left, but at the same time, he put a lot of hard work in to helping get guys there that set the foundation for the success we had after he was gone. And so I'm sure I know he personally was excited to see what we did after he left. And great story about Coach Wainwright is, when he recruited me, I told you I put on quite a few pounds when I came in as a freshman, and I was about 205. I came in at 180, and by basketball, when I got done with football and came out for basketball, I was about 205, and it's hard to put on 25 good pounds in 3 months. So they weren't the best pounds, I would say. And we had a Christmas party, and Coach Wainwright gave gifts to everybody, and his gift to me was one of those a thing you put in the fridge, one of those pigs, and when you open the door, it oinks at you. So that was his Christmas present to me. My freshman year for Christmas was a pig that oinked at me every time I opened the fridge. So basically saying you need to lose some weight.
That sounds like him. That certainly sounds like Jerry Wainwright. I'm sure you have a ton of stories there. Again, 4 tournament appearances for you guys, and you play with some good players. Like you said, Tim Duncan, Randolph Childress. What was it like to have those guys and to know that, you were going to be part of something big there during that time? Yeah,
I started my freshman year. I got to play with Rodney Rogers. I think I tell people Zion Williamson before he ever came along, right? 6'8", left-handed, can shoot, can run. I heard he could throw baseball 95. Like I said, one of those guys that probably could have played 3 sports in college better than I could. And so playing with guys like that, when you get a chance to play with those guys, and, Tim obviously kind of came out of nowhere. Randolph, one of the greatest scorers in ACC history. You just get the confidence, and also those guys are great teammates. They knew what they cared about winning. It wasn't, everybody wants to have personal and be the guy, but they cared about winning, and we also had some unbelievable pieces that went along with us. You think of Travis Banks, 6'6" athlete, Tony Rutland, unbelievable player who played with Allen Iverson out of high school, Ricardo Peral, 6'10" shooter from Spain. At one point we used to play him at the 3, and back then in the early 90s, a 6'10" guy who could shoot threes was really kind of unheard of. Now everybody does it, but so we just had a lot of good pieces, and it kind of all fell into place for some excellent teams through those years.
Yeah, that was definitely some of those names you mentioned, kind of who's for Wake Forest basketball at that time. Just some great athletes. Looking at that team, it seemed like, Tim Duncan is that silent guy, Childress, the guy that's going to talk. Is that how those guys worked off each other? Yeah, for sure.
Randolph is not a shy guy. I'm sure you've seen some of his podcasts, and but is a highly intelligent, knows the game player, and is not, I'd say maybe, and he would probably tell you, he doesn't, maybe takes a few plays off on defense here and there, but the guy can give it to you and put it in any way you want it on the other end. So, and Tim was quiet. Tim came in, and Tim leads in his own way. Tim's a little bit more of a lead by example. Unbelievably hard worker. Both those guys. Randolph came back from a knee injury to get to where he was, and had shoulder injuries in college. And you don't get to be as good as those guys without being extremely hard workers. And but yeah, the dynamic was really good. And then, when Randolph graduated, a lot of people thought we would really struggle after he left my senior year and Tim's junior year. And, guys like Tony stepped up, and we had another even better run, my senior year.
Yeah. Again, 95, 96 ACC champs. And I think one accolade, or one thing that sticks out to me 4-0 at Cameron Indoor Stadium against Duke.
Absolutely.
You're one of 4 players, right? Tim Duncan, your teammate, and then 2 North Carolina guys, Tyler Hansborough and Danny Green. I mean, that's impressive right there.
It is. We were blessed to go in and win. I think my freshman year, Rodney had like 35, had an unbelievable cup dunk going baseline, but just some unbelievable games. I lost one time to Duke, in 4 years. And so, I certainly make sure I put that out on Twitter and remind all the Duke fans every time Wake plays at Duke, and the Duke fans. But yeah, that's an unbelievable atmosphere to play anytime you come out of there. I lost more times at Clemson than I did at Duke, which is unbelievable. But we just, for some reason, we're blessed during those times to pull those out. And, my senior year, I really felt like we had a chance to win a national championship. I thought we did our junior year too. We ran into, we just kind of had an off night against Oklahoma State in the Sweet 16, and probably would have made the Final Four if we get by them. And my senior year, obviously, Tony blows his knee out in the conference championship game of the ACC tournament. And then, we get a 2 seed in the same bracket with Kentucky, which I thought was a bad seed. I thought we could have been a 2 seed, but in another bracket other than with them. I think if we don't play them in the Elite Eight, we make the Final Four. So, just again, blessed to play in some great arenas and certainly blessed to come out of Cameron 4-0.
And you mentioned the atmosphere there. Best atmosphere as an opposing player at Cameron during the days?
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing. Just the size, it's just so different than a lot of places. You go into, playing in some of the other places is pretty amazing too. Carolina's obviously great, their fan base, and, got to play in some great arenas on the road, in the tournament. But just Duke, the size and this history and the quality of the teams you play, yeah, it's one of a kind. And other than Wake, the Joel's pretty good too now. I will say the Joel in his day when Tie-Dye Nation was rocking, and we have a pretty good spot as well.
Well, I asked you Rhodes, so
yeah, Rhodes. I would say is fair.
Yeah, we'll mention the Joel there as well. You mentioned that your junior year, 94, 95. That's when you played all 3 sports. You played baseball, 3-inning, 2-hit relief against Furman. So you were the first and just a second player ever in the ACC to play all 3 sports in 1 year. Was that a goal of yours? Did you know that going into that appearance on the baseball diamond?
Yeah. Like I said, Coach Greer had come watch me play in high school and kind of said, hey, we would love to, if you want, and I had been, I got scouted out of high school, but I was a upper 80s thrower in high school. I was really more of a movement and location pitcher and hit like 425 my senior year. And so was kind of a utility guy in the field. And I wanted to play my sophomore year, but my sophomore year, I broke my wrist. I played the whole basketball season my sophomore year with a broken shooting wrist and didn't know it. And so had to have some surgery. I went through spring football and then had to have a screw put in my right wrist. So I didn't play baseball after my sophomore year, and decided my junior year, and partly too because I wanted to keep that door open professionally. Again, we had struggled a little with football and being competitive, and basketball. My sophomore year, my junior year, I was a 6th man, but I don't know. I averaged 6 points a game or something like that. So obviously the NBA scouts weren't touting me as the next big guy. So I played partly just to keep my name out there with the scouts and to kind of keep that door open.
Yeah, again, just a second in ACC history, the first since 1952 to do that, play all 3 sports in the same year. During that time, you're also all academic. You're Wake's Male Scholar Athlete of the Year back in 1996, Arnold Palmer Award winner as a senior as well. How'd you do that? How'd you balance sports and academics? I mean, one sport is tough enough, but going from season to season and then still be able to do what you need to do in the classroom, how'd you do it at the time?
I mean, obviously time management is very important. I wasn't a partier in college, I mean, I had started dating my now wife when I was a freshman in high school. And so, I think you just have to have your priorities straight. And I think luckily for me, like I said, I didn't, teams left me alone. I wasn't having to do like all season football and basketball at the same time or all season basketball and football. So, I was really I would say I was like a one sport athlete, but just always in season. And so you just have to stay on it. Wake's got unbelievable academic resources and support. I was not a real avid reader and still am. I'm not. So I was a computer science major and math minor. So luckily didn't have a ton of a lot of reading, doing a lot of reading classes and stuff like that. But I had a lot of projects, which is great as a multi-sport guy. I spent a lot of late nights in the computer lab getting projects done, and just again staying on top of it and spending my time wisely and making sure doing the daily stuff you got to do to be successful. It's just like an athlete. I used to, when I speak to kids all the time, I say, hey, I look to school like a sport. Man, you don't put time in every day. You do your homework every day. You do what you're supposed to do, and it adds up. If you try to cheat the game and cheat class and not do what you're supposed to do, it catches up to you. But if you'll stay on top of it and do what you're supposed to do, good things will happen.
Yeah, good message there. You might be the smartest guest we've had so far in our podcast here.
I don't know about that.
Well, you're also inducted in 2008 into the Wake Forest Sports Hall of Fame. That's got to be, for you, high water mark to see all that you did there athletically and to get that honor. What was that like when you were told that you were going to be in the Hall of Fame?
Lifelong dream come true. Anytime you make any Hall of Fame, whether it's the high school Hall of Fame or what, it's a big deal. Like I said, I started going to Wake camp when I was 8 years old when Carl Tacey was the coach, and I remember it was a big day in my house when I was 12 years old, and I came home from camp and I was taller than Muggsy Bogues, and so just a big deal for me. My wife picks on me because I broke down, started crying during my Hall of Fame speech, and I said, it's like my dad always said, when I cried after we lost, he goes, it means something to you, right? It means you get emotional about it because it means something. So just when something like that comes along, you just feel good about it because you put all the work in, and you think about all the people that helped you along the way, your parents, your wife, your brother who you grew up, wanting to be like him. And it's a great feeling.
As you said, your brother was older than you, kind of drove you and kind of helped you become the athlete that you were at the time there, certainly at Wake Forest. So again, you had different avenues you can go to. You decided to go basketball. You felt like that was the best way professionally. Obviously it worked out for you, but what were you thinking at that point in 1996? And unfortunately, you go undrafted in the NBA. So then What are you thinking at that point once you're undrafted?
So I've never been drafted in a professional draft other than second to last in the CBA expansion draft, one ahead of Chris Collins. So that's the only time I've ever been drafted. But
so again, you're beating Duke again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It is. I will take it. You know what I'm saying? So, but my senior year again, because we went to the Elite Eight in basketball, I didn't get to go to any football combine. I kind of thought I didn't have any. I averaged 10 a game. Wasn't even remotely on the draft board for NBA. Had some baseball teams talking to me, but baseball minor leagues, I wasn't going to be a high draft pick. Again, I was throwing low 90s. They weren't sure if I was going to be a utility fielder or a pitcher. So it was going to be minor leagues making, pocket money, fighting it out with that. And in baseball, there's not a lot of places to play. You're playing in the U.S. for the NBA Major League, or back then, maybe you're kicking around the minor leagues, right? With football, I had 4 teams talking to me. I was talking to the Bengals, the Saints, the 49ers, and the Panthers. And the Bengals and the 49ers came in and watched me throw. And I really thought I was going to get invited to camp with the Panthers. They were saying, hey, we may draft you. We might invite you to camp as the 3rd quarterback or 4th quarterback, I believe it was, to compete for that quarterback spot. And so I kind of was waiting on that. Draft day came and went, never got my name called. And then, I didn't get an agent for either sport, just because I didn't feel like an agent was going to help me really in either one, which is probably a mistake in terms of football. But I really thought the Panthers, I was going to get a chance to try out. And I've always thought, if I get a chance to try out, I'll make the team, if I get a chance to try out. So draft day came and went. A couple of days later, called the Panthers, and they said, we decided to bring Kelly Stouffer in as our other guy, so we're not going to bring him to camp. So at that point, my option, I said, I had already looked at some basketball agents. I signed with Jack Marin, who unfortunately was a Duke guy, but he was a good guy, as my agent. And he got me invited to Portsmouth Invitational. And so I got to go to Portsmouth. And I had been, Clarence Gaines was the scout for the Bulls at the time with Clarence Big House Gaines' son.
Yeah,
and so he had, based out of Winston, so he'd seen me play a lot. And I went to Portsmouth and played great at Portsmouth and played really well. I had a really good Portsmouth team. Listen to my Portsmouth team. Derek, left-hander, played point guard for the Lakers. I'm drawing a blank on his last name. You know him. I'll think of it in a second. Mark Pope was on my team. I'll think of Derek's name, but he played a long time he was on the championship teams with
Derek
the
Fisher. Derek
Fisher. Yes. So
JR,
Derek Fisher, Mark Pope. We had three guys at Portsmouth who ended up having a long NBA, or mine wasn't long. They had long NBA careers, and I had a cup of coffee in the league. So I got invited to Houston Rockets camp after they saw me. That was the 1 year that they tested the shorter NBA 3-point line. And so I got invited to summer league with the Houston Rockets. And so I said, you know what, this is my opportunity. And so I went to summer league with Houston Rockets, and I played great with them in summer league. That was the year they signed Matt Maloney. So I ended up not getting signed by them, but I shot like 64% from three over the course of summer league, and got invited to camp with the Bulls out of my rookie year. And so I kind of never looked back.
Well, you had some other stops though along the way to Chicago as well. Carolina Cardinals. You went to Paris, Connecticut in the CBA. You went to Idaho. You're talking about baseball with minor league baseball. You were bounced around a little bit and went to some different places. Were there ever times that you were going to give up on that opportunity, or were you still, hey, I'm going to chase it for as long as I can here?
Yeah, when I came out, when I went to summer league, my rookie year, I went to summer league with Houston, played great, got invited to camp and I had done the Carolina Cardinals in the summer league. Again, I was like, why not play? I'm gonna play. I'm gonna make a little money. I'm gonna stay in shape, right? I had been married for almost 2 years. I got married after my sophomore year. A year and a half later, my son Riley was born, so I was married with a kid, that summer. And so when I went to camp with the Bulls, I flew into Chicago. Got there, and I got a call from PSG in Paris and said, hey, we got Sedell Threatt is injured, and J.R. Reed was the other player, American on the team. We need a player to fill in for a month. They offered me $15,000 for a month. And the Bulls were like, you're not going to make our team, right? We invited you up to take a look at you. You need to go make the money. So I left there and flew to Chicago, from Chicago to Paris. And I did a month there in Paris as a fill-in. And then when that contract was up, he was back, had my wife and 9-month-old at the time over there. I got some other job offers in Europe, making $7-8 a month, but I was ready to come home, man. If you've never been overseas, I was living in a hotel, with two English channels, the CNN and the Cartoon Network. And I've seen every episode of Scooby-Doo you can imagine at this point. And so I was ready to come home. So I came home and without any prospects of a job. And so for the month of November, all the CBA teams were full. November, December, I was working with a friend of mine who runs a financial firm, and I was working out. I was getting up every morning at 6 a.m. working out again in the evening, waiting for a call. And Christmas kind of came and went, and I hadn't got a call yet. And so I went down to I called Clarence Gaines with the Chicago Bulls and said, hey man, I think I'm done. I got a wife and kid. I gotta go get a job, right? And so I went down to interview with Anderson Consulting on a Friday night in Charlotte. Got offered a job, making great money, $45, $50K a year. And started looked at apartments with my wife, and then had tickets to the Hornets game that night. Charlie Ward had gotten me, went and watched the Hornets play. And then on the way home, pre-cell phone, I told my wife we had to stop and get gas. Said, I'm gonna call them, check messages, don't know why, just to see if I had gotten a call. And I had gotten a call from the Connecticut Pride and was looking for a combo guard. Assistant coach was Pat Knight, Bob Knight's son. And so I called him back and said, what time you only on a plane in the morning? And flew up there and went to Connecticut, finished that half of the year in the CBA with the Connecticut Pride, and played well enough to get invited back to Summer League with the Bulls the next summer. And went to Summer League with the Bulls and played great. Thought I had a chance to make the team, and got cut the last day of camp, 2 hours before the flight left for the first game. And so, you talk about a journeyman, I've kind of been there, done that, and kind of how that came about. People, I mentioned not never get drafted. I got cut from every NBA team I ever played for the first time I got there. When I was with the Bulls, obviously that was Jordan's The Last Dance crew, and you're just a fly on the wall, and you're just trying to hang on and find a way to make it. And Steve Kerr had been banged up a little bit, and so when they cut me about 2 hours before the flight left for the first game, they said, "Hey, if anything happens, we're going to give you a call up." So that was when I got drafted second to last by Idaho in the expansion draft. And so I got on a plane the next day and flew out to Idaho, and flew my wife and son out there, and had kind of went through training camp with them. And so, we loved Idaho. I was playing for the Stampede. I was playing for Russ Bergman, really good coach there. And we had a good team. And going into the first game, so my dad calls me about the day before our first game out there, says, "Hey, did you see the Bulls game last night?" I was like, "No, Dad, I don't, I don't have the NBA package out in Idaho." He's like, "Well, Steve Kerr went down hard last night. He may be hurt." And so, my dad's watching every Bulls game, waiting for somebody to get hurt, hoping I get called up, I'm sure. And so sure enough, I get a call later that day from Jerry Krause, who says, "Hey, Steve's got an MRI in the morning, and if he can't go, we're going to call you up." Again, pre-cell phone days. By 1 or 2 in the afternoon, I hadn't got a phone call, and I got a game that night, opening game of the Idaho Stampede season. And I go tell my wife, I'm like, "Do not leave the house without taking the phone call. If he doesn't call, just stay home. Don't come to the game, right? Don't miss the call." And so go to the game, and I'm warming up. As I'm warming up, my wife walks in and kind of gives me the thumbs up that I'm getting called up. And I'm a competitive guy, so I don't sit out of games. But I really thought about not playing because I didn't want to get hurt, but I still played. I actually hit the first basket in Idaho Stampede history, which was a 3-pointer, and scored 12 points, and then got on a plane the next day and headed to Chicago.
That's incredible. I mean, that's just got to be a roller coaster of emotions for you during that time. So then you're with the Bulls. You're with them. The Last Dance, as you mentioned, the documentary that they did. Did you know at the time that they were kind of filming this and doing a documentary? Did you know that it was, Jordan's last go around there?
I mean, I knew it was his last go around because they had shirts printed and they gave us, it said the last dance on them. So I kind of knew it was the end. I mean, you held out hope that something might happen, but you kind of knew it was. And I tell people all the time, I mean, when you're in it, you don't realize it, I guess. And and I'm a rookie, and I'm just fighting to try to. You're a competitor, and you're just trying to fit in and do your thing, man. And you're just trying to do everything you can to try to earn minutes and be a part of, get in there any way you can and make a name for yourself. And that was a great group to be with, though. I remember the first meal we went out, and we went right on a road trip. We were on a West Coast road trip right away when I got called up. And so, I remember being on the road in the first team meal, and we sat down, and I've gone out, Steve Kerr and Judd Bushler and that group of guys. And we sat down, and the bill came, and they put it in front of me. And I was like, oh my, and I didn't even blink. I just said, you know what? All right, this is what rookies got to do. They got to pay for the food. Then I pay for the food. And then they stopped me. They're like, no, you don't have to pay. And I never paid for another meal the rest of the year. And I joke with people that, my job was to get the bags from the bus to the plane. And if anybody wanted alcohol on the plane, I was supposed to get it. And, if I was going to do that, I was going to be the best one they had, because, I was going to earn my paycheck.
Well, I mean, you were around some of the greats, obviously Michael Jordan, but Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman. You mentioned, Steve Kerr there as well. And then eventually you went on to coaching, and so obviously Phil Jackson's your coach. Mm-hmm. Was that a time of learning from you, or for you, from that standpoint, knowing that maybe coaching was going to be in my future?
Yeah, I didn't know if I'd be a coach. I always wasn't sure I wanted to be a coach, just because I knew how hard it was. And I knew, as a player, you kind of got to take the next best opportunity that comes along. And I kind of felt like when I got done playing, I might not want to keep doing that, and coaches have to do that. But it was always a potential. And so I think the thing you learn, I played for some unbelievable coaches. I mean, Jim Caldwell, great guy. We we talked about Dave at Wake, and Jerry Sloan later in my career, and Phil obviously is a master at bringing people together and getting buy-in from all different types of egos and people to and he's a smart basketball guy too. You don't do what he does with just being some kind of guru of people, but you learn a lot. You learn things, you see how people get treated, and you learn a lot as a professional. And the thing I probably take from that time is that team, getting to play with those guys, and you talked about some of the names, you learn how to be a pro. Those guys were pros. You learn what it takes to be a pro and what it's like to be a professional. I mean, we never had 2-a-days in practice. I mean, we used to get out in practice, and I would come back to the gym about every night to work out, just because I felt like, man, I got to be doing more, because that was such a veteran team. Camp was just to get those guys in shape. I mean, it was, all those guys had been through the wars in the ringer. Scott Burrell was really the only other guy, and Keith Booth, that were kind of new to the team with me that year. So just learning how to be a pro and watching how Phil dealt with those guys, and some of the things he does, you take along with you, and you try to use them and when you become a leader and a coach yourself. Did you watch The Last Dance when it came out? I did. It was fun. I mean, obviously I had to do a lot of interviews and stuff at the time as a guy who was a bit part. People used, as it was coming out, people were like, "Hey, are you going to be in it? Are you going to be in it?" I was like, "Well, listen, it depends on how much practice footage they show. If they show practice footage, I'm going to be on there a lot." And but it was fun, because my kids, I ran basketball camps and stuff, and so they knew, I lived back in the area I grew up, and so they always heard about the Bulls and me and championship and all that kind of stuff. But I think then the hoopla that kind of came back around, and when it came back out, and them to see it, and for them to sit down and watch it, and we watched every night. It's like, fine, where's Waldo, and they were finding me, so it was fun to relive it with them. Because at the time, Riley, who's passed since, was my only child that was alive. And he was 1.5, 2 years old. So I think it was fun to get to re-experience it with them. What I enjoyed. Yeah, from a fan, it was fun to watch that and kind of relive that time as well. You mentioned, Steve Kerr, some other guys. Is that who you kind of gravitated to when it came to working out and when it came to learning how to be a pro? You were kind of his fill-in. Is that kind of who you gravitated toward? Yeah, I mean, obviously you try to. I mean, that was the role I filled in. When he was out, and was when I got to play my minutes when he was down for a while. And but obviously Keith Booth and I hung out a lot, and then Scott Burrell being a new guy, Randy Brown. We used to play a lot around Robin 1-on-1. But I'm also kind of a loner too. I mean, just. I wasn't, like I said, I'm not a going out kind of guy. So I'm the kind of guy that I loved per diem in NBA, because, I pocketed that money when I was not going out and spending it at the club and other places. And so, but just getting to be along, like I said, along with those guys, and Judd and Steve used to say, "Rusty, listen, it's not like this anywhere else. I'm just telling you, it's not like this. Just the circus and the hoopla. Don't get used to this. It's just not like this anywhere else." I mean, we would come into Washington, D.C. on a Wednesday night at 2 a.m. after a game, and there'd be 300 people waiting on the bus, and kids and you name it. And so just, it just was just a different world to live in. How often do you wear that championship ring? When do you bring it around? I never, I just don't. I mean, I love it, and I got it in my trophy case, and I pull it out occasionally for a speaking engagement here and there. And, but just, it's not that I'm not proud of it, because I am, my dad always tell me, is what have you done for me lately? Right. It's all good and well, but what have you done for me lately? Well, that was 1998. You played basketball up until 2004 with the Bulls, a couple other teams, as you mentioned, the Jazz, Golden State Warriors as well. And was it hard to come to that realization that, okay, it's time to hang it up. It's time to get to the next step in my journey here? Yeah, it's always hard. Obviously, like I told you, I was married when I started, and I bounced around. I played 8 years professionally, went from the Bulls years, and then the lockout. Unfortunately for me, the year after the championship was the lockout year. And so, I kind of had to scramble and sign a contract. I signed a partial guarantee with no guarantee the second year with Chicago, played that season, then got cut the second year. went to the minor leagues in Idaho, got a call up, got hurt, ended up. And my kind of MO when I was playing was I always wanted to play in the NBA. I looked overseas was great. It's one of the reasons I chose to play basketball. You could go over there and make good money. But I didn't see myself being a career overseas guy. I would do it if I didn't get invited to an NBA camp I felt good about. I went to Italy one year. I played for. I pretty much made the Jazz. Got on the Jazz roster because I played at CSKA Moscow with Andrei Kirilenko, and that's how I got invited to camp with Utah. And then got cut and then got called up mid-year. And so when it came to the end, I started having a lot of injuries. My second to last year, I played in Italy. I played for Varese and went over there, cracked a rib in the first 2 weeks. Got back from that, broke a hand, had to get 2 screws put in. Came back from that, rolled an ankle. And so the next year I said, you know what? I was going to be 30. I want to make an NBA team. I got invited to Celtics camp. Got to the last day of camp, got cut again. I was literally thought I was gonna make it. They cut everybody but me, and I was the 15th player. I told my wife, I called her, I said, I think I just made the Celtics roster. And they traded me 2 guys for 3 players, and one of which was on the injured list, and called me in the next day and said, hey, numbers game, we don't have room for you, you're gone. And realized I had rebroken my wrist, and so missed the first half of that season with a recovery on an injury. Finished out that season in the minor leagues with Joey Meyer and the Asheville Altitude. I got called up by 10 days by Eric Musselman in Golden State that year, and was having fascia problems with my feet. And so it kind of at 30, I kind of knew I wasn't I was going to have to, I might get an NBA shot, but I could stay in the minor leagues and probably get called up some because I'm a serviceable guy who's going to make some jump shots, but had overseas offers, still making 6 figures. But I just kind of got a call out of the blue from Greensboro College, which was in my hometown, right near Kernersville, and said, hey, we're looking for a head coach. And I just felt like that was where God was calling me to be. And going along with that, I had 3 kids at the time, and my daughter, my 4th, was going to be born on August 2nd. So I was going to either look at my wife with 3 kids under the age of 6 and say, hey, you're going to have to drag a toddler to Timbuktu, or, we're going to stay home and stay here and be home with the baby. So I kind of felt like it was time and kind of never looked back. Hindsight, you think, man, I wish I would have maybe played a little longer, or maybe done something, maybe done another year or 2 overseas just to experience it. But it was the time for me when I turned 30. I think my body was telling me.
Yeah, I was going to say, did the injuries kind of make it easier in a sense to say, okay, my time has come now to move on to the next thing?
Yeah, luckily for me, I never had I say major. No knees or anything. But I've broken both wrists and fingers, and it's a grind, man. Pro athlete. I put a lot of miles on my body in college and with football and that. And it's a grind. And so especially with the travel and when you play in the minor leagues, it ain't flying charter planes with 5-star hotels, so that helped. And I just think getting the opportunity right close to home, I had built a successful summer camp basketball academy business that was helping pay the bills. And so, I kind of felt like it was the right time.
Yeah. So Greensboro College, Forsyth Country Day School. You were the AD and the head coach, assistant coach back at your alma mater, Wake Forest, as well. And then West Forsyth High School, Chris Paul's high school, you were the head coach as well. What's your takeaways there? And what was it like going back to Wake Forest as an assistant coach at the time?
Yeah, so I did Greensboro for a year, and then I got recruited to Forsyth Country Day School mainly because of my basketball academy, and did a little bit of everything there. Did AD, got to head coach football, high school football for a while, which was awesome. And coach basketball. And then when Pat Kelsey actually left Wake to take go back to Xavier, I believe it was, or I can't remember. No, it was Chris Mack maybe went to Xavier. Dino brought me on his staff there, and it was a great experience with him that year. Obviously he was let go at the end of the year, and I was fortunate to get to stick on with Coach Bzdelic when he stayed. But it was tough. Being at alma mater, I'll be honest with you, I'm a competitor, and we were not very successful we made a run to the tournament, Ish Smith's senior year, and beat Texas, and then had to kind of, rebuild under Coach Bizdelic, and end up that staff got let go after 4 years, and it was hard. Losing and just a lot of negativity around the program. I love being back at Wake. Places near and dear to me, and the people there are amazing, and just but it was hard in terms of losing there. But it was great to be back and to be a part of it. And but as you probably taught some college coaches. College coaching is hard, man. Coaching in general is hard. It's getting harder and harder. The amount of hours you have to work and what you do. And I'm not opposed to work, so the hours didn't bother me. But I don't love recruiting. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I'm a little old school, and there's only so many, whats I'm going to kiss to tell you how good you are before I can just need to tell you the truth. But I miss it too. I do miss the competitiveness of that level, and you miss teaching the game. I really miss getting in the gym and teaching the game now that I'm away from it. But it was fun. I mean, I enjoyed my time there despite the losing, but it was a hard time. For when you're competitive, it's hard losing. It's even worse when you're at your alma mater. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, we just couldn't quite pull it together as well as we needed to.
Yeah, I'm sure it was frustrating. Like you said, you did nothing but win during your time there as a player. Trying to do that as a coach, and coaching is tough. College coaching, as you said, to be consistent is so hard from one year to the next, especially now with the transfer portal and everything else. Get you out on this. I know you're kind of stepped away, I guess, from coaching right now. Tell us what you're doing and how you're enjoying that part now of your journey in your life.
Yeah, so I am Chief Operations Officer for a company called Dario. We've got 9 locations here in Winston-Salem area. I kind of fell into it when I left Wake. I didn't get retained by Coach Manning's staff. I've always been an entrepreneur. Kind of knew I wanted to get in that. I was actually looking at Chick-fil-A franchises, looking at financial management, maybe doing basketball academy full time. Met the owner with Dario, and he already had a location picked out in Kernersville, which is my hometown, which is going to be his 4th location. And so, he said, I want you to, come in, learn the business, and I want that to be your store, kind of as the owner of it. And, just love the brand, love the business, and chance to be an entrepreneur. And at the same time, when I started that, I had a lot of basketball opportunities, but didn't want to move my family. My kids were high school age. I just didn't want to move them. And so kind of the opportunity came along. And at the same time, the West Forsyth coaching job, came along right after that. So it worked out well that I got to do both. And, but came on board with the brand and loved it, ran that location, helped them open our 3rd location, then opened my location, the 4th one. And then 3 years ago, they brought me on board as the Chief Operations Officer at the corporate office. So, and since then we've opened 3 more locations. We're busy, we're a high volume restaurant, fast casual, do a little bit of everything. And I love it. I love getting to build teams. I tell people all the time, somebody say, man, what are you going to do without sports? And, coaching, when I quit coaching at West, when I came on board to the corporate office. Man, it's the same for me. I said, I'm still dealing with 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, hiring in the store and getting to build teams and, do it in my own community and help build a brand and build a business that I love. And I work with some phenomenal people across the board from top to bottom. So.
Yeah, they always say that athletics and sports carries over beyond the playing field. It certainly has for you. I know one other thing, you did a farmhouse renovation as well. How did that go? And was that a fun project? Frustrating
it was.
Project?
Yeah, it was. I'm a doer by nature, and I love projects. And we bought the farmhouse. Was actually a 16-acre old dairy farm. Used to be a 500-acre dairy farm. It was actually in foreclosure. It had been abandoned for like 5 years, and we bought it at the county courthouse steps. And I was unemployed at the time, so it probably wasn't the smartest thing to do. But it's been a fun project. It kind of brought it back to its former glory, and the tractor time is my therapy in the evening when I'm stressed. And it used to be getting in the gym and shooting jump shots, and I'm not as spry as I used to. So now I get on the tractor and mow the fields when I need a little break.
How can people follow you? Are you on social media? I know you do have a website. How can people follow Rusty LaRue?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at Rusty_LaRue, and I think it's the same on Instagram and Facebook. And I'm not on there a ton, but I try to stay relative, keep up with my kids and what's going on. And Dario is at Eat Dario. We have all our social media as well, so and we're expanding and growing. So I love getting to talk sports still, and I may get back into it at some point. I don't know if I'll do it on the coaching side or the business side of it, but I do miss the competitiveness and getting to be, getting to teach the game. I think you ask any player who's been there and done that at a high level, you miss the camaraderie, you miss the pitting yourself against somebody else and the toil and the sweat that goes along with it, and the shared sacrifice of winning some games.
Yeah, as you said, you're a very competitive person. Well, I appreciate you talking some sports with us and going down memory lane with us here and spending a little time with us. Rusty, can't thank you enough, and nothing but the best for you moving forward.
Sounds good. And I know my daughter's going to Elon to play college volleyball, so I'm sure we'll be making a trip to UNC Wilmington at some point down that way and in that area. So I'm excited for her. She's the last one we're getting out of the house, so I'm looking forward to watching her be a college athlete as well.
Well, congratulations on that, and best of luck with being the dad in the stands watching those games.
Sounds good. Have a good one.
All right. Thank you, Rusty.
Thank you.
Well, great stuff there from Rusty LaRue. We thank him for spending some time with us here today, talking about his career and his life. Also, special thanks to the ACC Digital Network for the highlights you saw there in the Chicago History Twitter page for the picture of the championship Bulls team that he was a member of. We remind you, as always, if you like what you're seeing, if you like these guests and these interviews, subscribe to our YouTube page. It is free. It is easy. You won't miss another episode coming up. Again, that was episode number 26. Episode number 27 comes your way very soon. Stay with us. We'll have that for you in a little bit. For now, though, we thank you for joining us in the front row with Mike Vaccaro. Have a great day, everybody.